Story 1. Reflective, realizing my son is not just a better parent than I was, but truly the best parent I've ever known. He's flat out amazing and is raising genuinely great humans.
First time I saw my niece walk, she looked at me like, "Did you see that?" And I just started crying in my mom's kitchen. Didn't even care that I looked like a mess.
I asked my son something once, and his response was, "I'm not raising children. I'm raising adults." Much wiser than his years. Chuckles.
More seriously, I'm a mom. But I'm confident that if you're anything like my son, your dad sees you and is so incredibly proud of you. It's sometimes hardest to say the things that need saying most. Seeing this tonight, I will take the extra step of sharing these feelings with my son or reminding him of them here in a few hours when I'm relatively certain he's awake. Love and light.
Story 2. Being able to pay off my parents' home in full so they don't ever have to worry about struggling to pay the mortgage payments ever again. My parents sacrificed a lot to make sure my siblings and I had everything we'd need. Mom worked 2 jobs and Dad was always working day and night. We'd rarely see them. As kids, we grew to resent their lack of presence at times, till of course we grew old enough to realize they were slaving away to stay afloat and put us through school without a worry.
This is my goal in life, or at least to give them a dream vacation.
Story 3. When I finally pulled the trigger on the United States and moved abroad, it was like being reborn, and I'd never felt freer in my life.
In El Campo, the countryside, on the central Mexican plateau.
Story 4. The first time I realized I didn't feel anxious for no reason. Just calm. Felt like winning something invisible. Story 5. Driving to Carmel by the Sea along the Pacific Coast Highway was absolutely beautiful. Also, driving through Pebble Beach.
My happiest day was playing golf with my dad at Pebble Beach.
Story 6. My friends and I have a joke. That's not actually a joke. Chuckles lightly, when we're out together having fun, that the day is the best day of our life. So, I guess I've had a new happiest moment like every month or two. And it's always when I'm surrounded by people I love. Warm smile. Story 7. I would say paying off my car. It happened recently too in July 2025. The downside is that I didn't get to enjoy having extra money because 5 months later, my dad wants me to take care of him, so I didn't get to enjoy the extra money and had to quit my office job. Story 8. Every single time when I'm sitting on my couch and my partner comes and sits on one side of me and hugs me, and my dog jumps up and uses me as a pillow on my other side, so I'm just sitting there, sandwiched between my family. Then the dog falls asleep and starts twitching and dreaming while we watch TV together. Those are the happiest for sure.
A family of 2 humans and 1 dog is so underrated. I love my little combo family. We even just added a second doggy. I'm so happy, minus the potty accidents.
Story 9. When I was driving west on a long road trip, I really wanted McDonald's breakfast, but 10:30 came with none in sight. Then I crossed a time zone, and my clock moved back an hour. Story 10. I once put in $1 to get a Reese's from a vending machine. When I punched in the number, as the Reese's came out, the one behind it fell down too, so I got 2 Reese's.
I often look for this in vending machines. It's the only time I gamble. I once saw 2 items stuck in a machine and got a bag of chips from the top that knocked the other 2 items down.
Story 11. After my mom passed, I bought an RV and hit the road with my ex. She would play guitar and busk in random places, and I did data entry for Samsung wherever I could find internet. There was some getting used to it, but we got into a groove of half camping and making more money than we spent, even taking weeks off doing anything. My favorite spot was Yosemite. We stayed there for weeks and moved spots a few times. One morning, I woke up early and made French press coffee on the fire. The fog was rolling over the stream we camped by, and the sun was peeking over the mountains. My significant other at the time woke up, wrapped a blanket around me, and I gave her a cup of coffee. We were taking in the beauty of it all when the ground started to rumble. We thought it was a small earthquake. Turns out, it was a herd of mule deer that stopped at the stream to drink. It was surreal. The colors in Yosemite make it seem like a lost world, untouched by man. We had no plans. No plans to go and no plans to stay. No obrigações, no rente, no bills. Just this untouchable moment. It was the first time I felt at peace since I lost my mom. It's my happiest moment by far.
I'm looking for a remote job so I can live this kind of life again.
Story 12. During the COVID lockdown, I'd been pushing so hard for so long to provide for my family, secure a retirement, and so on. All of a sudden, I had no more obligations. No expectations. I could just be. The house was paid off and I had a little money in the bank. I was figuring out how to live an incredibly low-income life. All the pushing was over. And then the damn phone rang and I needed to go back to work. I got busy, made a lot of money, but was no longer happy. Story 13. In high school, experiencing my first ever kiss with a girl I had really liked since 7th grade. Story 14. I'm getting my PhD. My 7-year husband bailed on me the last 2 years after he got his PhD. He wanted to have fun with a female coworker. I left home with nothing but a computer, clothes, and 2 pets. I got a new phone and new financial accounts, built myself back up while doing my thesis, and never looked back. Story 15. Watching my wife walk down the aisle towards me, I did an ugly cry at the rehearsal and the wedding. Story 16. At age 31, I bought my first house after a really ugly divorce. I distinctly remember unlocking the front door for the first time and feeling like I had finally achieved a smidgen of success. Story 17. Having a major orthopedic surgery that gave me back a good amount of my athleticism and eliminated years of progressive, severe chronic pain over the last 8 years. Story 18. When my best friend in high school said that we were dating, she knew how I felt about her, but I didn't want to ruin our friendship by asking her out officially. I haven't felt a high like that, where I literally could not stop smiling, since. Story 19. Oh my gosh. Nothing tops the feeling when your baby gets placed on your chest after delivery. It's like the most euphoric happiness I've ever felt. The only other time I felt like that was after the birth of my second child.
The only thing that ever compared for me was getting handed my grandbaby. It's that feeling all over again.
Story 20. I was carrying my spouse around at my wedding, feeling invincible, surrounded by so much love. I thought, this is it, my pinnacle. And then that little demon in my head added, yep, all downhill from here. Chuckles, hush demon, shouts. Story 21. On my 11th birthday, I was given the keys to a new all-terrain vehicle, a 3-wheeler Honda Big Red. Story 22. Drifting down the Nile in a felucca at sunset. My husband and I were honeymooning in Luxor and were invited along with local friends we had made. Just one of those rare moments where everything felt completely still and right. Story 23. Woke up from being dead last year. Bear with me. I was happy, really. I was asleep in the hospital, monitored for heartbeat on an electrocardiogram machine. Woke up to a load of scared nurses looking at me. They'd carried out 2 rounds of chest compressions that I knew nothing about. They checked I was okay, then left me. My heart had gone into fibrillation, so it stopped actually beating. Initially scary, as I didn't want to fall asleep and die again. But, A, I was alive. B, dying was so very calm. If I am going to die, and the chances are pretty high that I will, I want to go like that. I was so happy to be alive, but so happy that there is a way to die that isn't awful. There are lots of other moments that we say are happy, like my wedding, a long day in 32 degrees Celsius heat while wearing a morning suit. Not a laugh. Birth of my children, really stressful. And so on. Not happy really, though I'm glad they all happened. Story 24. I'll say passing my swim qualifications test in boot camp. It took 27 tries to finally pass. Story 25. I have terrible autobiographical memory. I got married in August, but I don't think it was my happiest day. I won a big skating competition at age 13, and for a long time that was probably it. Honestly, I'm most happy when I am snuggling my dog and he looks me in the eyes. Every day is so happy with him. I love my husband, but he knows I'm saving my dog if both are hanging off a cliff and I can only get to one. Story 26. So far, but they keep growing. The other week, my daughter called me and her mom to the couch, gave us a hug and said, I love my family, the best she could. She's only 2. I left the room to cry after that. Story 27. I've been surviving since birth. I'm not entirely sure I've had a happiest moment. I've had happy moments like my kids being born and graduating from my dream school, but I've only survived in life, never thrived. So nothing truly feels like the happiest. Story 28. The happiest moments are usually holding a loved one, achieving a dream, or simply feeling fully present and at peace. Story 29. Giving birth to both of my kids. The end part, not the process. Each kid, 2 years apart, took 2 days each. They were both late, both induced. The epidural did not work. They tried it 2 or 3 times for each kid. For my first kid, it was much worse. He was late for a week. He did not want to come out even when induced. When the doctor finally had enough on the second day, the numbing cream for the C-section did not work. I still feel the blade cutting me open 12 years later. I was, and still am, so happy that it is over and that the doctors tied my tubes. I hate labor. Story 30. New Year's 2025 with my friends. I felt more at home than with anyone else outside of my family. Unfortunately, things happened, and I don't really feel that way anymore. Story 31. When I returned from my first date, this night was the best moment of my life. I was never so happy. Well, story 32. Hasn't happened yet, but the day I quit medicine or retire, becoming a physician and working in this horrible U.S. healthcare system was the single biggest mistake I've made in my life. It's ruined every last part of me and my family, and a whole cohort of some of the best and brightest folks I've met. Kids, don't do medicine. Story 33. One was the day my newborn son was placed in my arms. Sighs fondly now, every time my little grandkids run into the house and excitedly want a hug. Story 34. The moments when each of my girls was born safely and put on my chest. Labor and delivery is wild, but that moment is something else. Warm smile. Story 35. The day my daughter was born. Kind of feels like a new version of myself was born that day too. The joy is something felt so deeply that it actually changed me as a human being. Story 36. Lying in my bed with my little baby girl next to me, after nursing her, and listening to the rain at night. Story 37. An amazing vacation with my husband and my teenager. We were all relaxed and enjoying being together. The absolute best. Story 38. There have been many, but the most joy I ever felt was the night the Cubs won the World Series. Followed very closely by a recent trip of a lifetime to Italy with my husband. Multiple times during that trip, I truly felt like if I died the next day, I would die really, really happy and content. Story 39. On Friday, September 13th, 2002, I went to pick up my new 2003 FLHTC Harley-Davidson in black and silver. Story 40. It was a summer day, and I had been in and out of the hospital all summer when my wife bought us tickets to a Southeast Asian country and booked us into a beach resort. It was the rainy season, so we were the only people there. It was a beautiful, sunny day, and we got the entire beach to ourselves. We played in the waves and smiled and laughed all day. We took one picture, and you can see just how happy we are. I'll forever cherish that day. Story 41. When the Grateful Dead premiered Unbroken Chain at the Philadelphia Spectrum in March of 1995. Story 42. Holding my son for the first time after he was born. It was love at first sight. Story 43. When I was a kid, I remember just playing with my dog and rolling around, thinking how much better things would be as an adult. To have my own house, my own dog. Yeah, that would have been nice. Story 44. The 12 years I spent with the love of my life, now my ex, has been uphill ever since. Story 45. High school. I had an amazing friend group. I loved life, still do, but back then I loved it on another level, and I even loved going to school. And the second thing was when I went to Denmark for my minor. It was so chill and calming, and I felt the happiest ever. Story 46. For me, they aren't typically milestone days. For example, marriages, births, and so on. Those days I find memorable, but also intensely stressful in both good and bad ways. For me, it's more random. Getting together with the people I really enjoy, doing things I find interesting, and experiencing joy from that. For instance, playing music with my band is pretty enjoyable. Story 47. Getting my first kiss because I was in my early to mid-20s, and I thought it would never happen. Story 48. Man, you know it's bad when you have to actually think for a few minutes and almost nothing comes up. But probably the day I got a PlayStation 5 and a car. Sad. I know, laughing my ass off. Story 49. A happy moment in my journey was supposed to be a week ago. Now, I guess we can call it one of the saddest. A close family member has been helping me since last year, when I was hospitalized for many months with an incurable disease that's killing me. I was left paralyzed, broken, and lost everything financially, hanging on by a thread. I was approved for medically assisted dying many months ago. I decided to tell a family member, my aunt with her daughter there, to share the news. My aunt said she supported my decision and would respect it. But she lied to our faces. Within hours, she took a happy moment in my life that I wasn't ready to share with the entire family and told everyone, taking away my dignity, my choice, my power, my health. This individual is one of the most vile people I have ever met for doing such an act. By the way, Reddit, I'm dying. Story 50. Leaning on my partner's shoulder, holding her hand as the sun sets, wishing the moment would never end. Story 51. Before the war, I had my dream job in my dream city with some of my favorite people. I won't be that happy again. I still haven't gotten used to that. Story 52. The last time I saw my dad was when I went to visit him in Montana. I got to spend 2 weeks with him about a month before he died. Those were the happiest 2 weeks of my life. Story 53. A random evening with friends. Laughing so hard my stomach hurt. No phones, no stress. Just pure joy. Story 54. In 2014, with a big group of friends at a festival, Linkin Park played Meteora from start to finish. Amazing. Story 55. Happy life moments. Good heavens to Murgatroyd. I've had many. One that immediately springs to mind is the birth of our son. Story 56. When my now husband proposed. Walking down the aisle with my dad, with all eyes on me. That moment after the recessional when I looked at my husband and realized we were actually married. Story 57. I did a desert all-terrain vehicle ride for my birthday in Arizona one year, and it was honestly kind of scary. There were a lot of drop-off kind of turns down into valleys, and I'm a city girl from Chicago. I knew nothing about deserts having hills and bumps and swales, etc. At one point, it was so dirty and dusty I could barely see. My friends were in the dune buggy with me, and I was just internally thinking, oh my God, I'm so scared right now. A high school friend had just died in an ATV accident in Greece, but our excursion was non-refundable, so we went. I literally prayed, Lord, please don't let me harm any of us. And after that, I was so calm and collected. The view at the end was something I'd never seen before. Felt so peaceful and cinematic. Story 58. Not the happiest moment of my life, but I'm 15 months sober and just passed my peer support specialist exam. Soon I will have a job helping people, addicts and the homeless, get help. Who knew my past as a degenerate homeless drug addict would pay off? Story 59. My wedding day. Seeing my nephews walk my dogs down the aisle, followed by my wife. Story 60. My college graduation ceremony was both the happiest and the saddest, all at the same time. I had worked my ass off, studying harder than I ever had, to earn a 4.0 grade point average, and I was very proud of that. While waiting for my name to be called to receive my diploma, I was so choked up, fighting back tears. At the same time, I was alone. No family, no friends. No one came to share the proudest moment of my life with me. They had all been told and invited, but no one showed up. Story 61. My second child being born. Don't get me wrong, but with my first I was overwhelmed. He was very early, so I wasn't prepared. Everything was new. I was in a foreign country. It was just too much too soon, and I didn't feel that immense joy when he was placed on my chest. I felt like the worst mom ever for so long. Then he was in the neonatal intensive care unit. COVID times, I had a mask. Didn't even kiss him in the first 24 hours, and I just felt like I failed him somehow. But my second, oh boy, he was born less than a year after my first. It wasn't planned, obviously, but we were so happy. I was so in control during labor. I was so sure of what I was doing. I felt like a fucking rock star giving birth for the second time in less than a year. For the second time with no drugs. My husband was stuck at the airport, so I just calmly called him in the middle of 2 contractions to tell him not to worry if I stopped replying to his texts suddenly because I was very much in labor. I was in the delivery room on my own with 2 midwives, and I did it all on my own. Pushed that baby out of me with my own hands. I was happily married, 2 babies super healthy, a supportive family. I don't think anything can beat the feeling I had that day. Story 62. Discovering Sicily's wonderful landscapes on a motorbike. I've never ridden a bike before. It was truly amazing, hugging my partner's shoulders and embracing all the thrill and fascination while seeing gorgeous places I've only seen on postcards before. Story 63. It hasn't happened yet is kinda depressing. Chuckles. Probably when I adopted my cat Mittens. She's a real jerk sometimes, but I wouldn't trade her for anything. Does that make me a cat person now? Story 64. Honestly, it wasn't some huge milestone. It was a random Tuesday when I realized I wasn't anxious for once. Just sitting there eating takeout and laughing with someone I love. I remember thinking, wait, this is it? Like this quiet, normal moment is enough? I don't know, it caught me off guard. I almost ruined it by overthinking it, which is very on brand for me. Story 65. I don't remember exactly the happiest moment or the happiest day, but something close to it is when my cat comes to sleep with me. I get so happy, and I can relax easily and fall asleep. Story 66. At Christmas time, at the end of the first year of COVID, my family and I discussed whether I should come home or if it would be safe to travel on a packed train. My mom and I agreed that as soon as I walked in the door, she would wash my clothes and I'd take a shower. As soon as I saw her, I ran straight for her instead. We wrapped our arms around each other in a hug that I still feel to this day and cried. All the fear, worry, mental exhaustion just melted away. She had an uncanny way of making everything better. Story 67. There are 2 moments that stand out. The first was when my daughter was born. The second was when I had her in daycare. She and her cousin, who is only 6 months older than her, did not get along well, even for toddlers. So I was always worried she might be aggressive toward the other kids there. But after about a week, one of the adults sent me a picture of her carrying around the other kids' water bottles and holding them up so they could drink. She's such a sweet kid. Story 68. Number 1. Seeing my favorite band of all time with my best friend of all time. Number 2. My first mushroom trip. Story 69. I've been helping raise another man's child that he wanted nothing to do with. It wasn't about time, money, energy, or effort. Who did what or who did more. It was about love. 6 weeks to this day. She's 13. Her mom and I never married. We were together for over 10 years. She was unfaithful 5 years ago and we split. My duties, responsibility, and obligation don't change. My loyalty is to my daughter. It has been and always will be. Story 70. Childhood. Specifically, from age 3 to 11 or 12. Interpersonal relations made it difficult for me to figure out after that. Story 71. I left my abusive husband. I downgraded severely in square footage, but it was mine and I was safe. The peace that I felt that first night was incredible. Story 72. I met my boyfriend totally out of the blue in a comment exchange during COVID. We moved our conversation to direct messages and never stopped talking. The weekend he came to visit me for the first time was the happiest I have ever been. We fell in love. He sent me a dozen roses after he got home that included a forward note that made my heart soar to the heavens. I've never felt a wave of emotion like that, and it's been the top moment of my life. Story 73. When my sister got married and we had everyone, literally everyone in the family and all who loved her, at her big moment it was just so overwhelming for me. I'm crying as I remember it now because it was so beautiful. Story 74. When I was like 6, my brother and I got a Super Nintendo for Christmas morning. Chuckles. It's been pretty much downhill since then. Story 75. Being the daughter of a single mother and realizing she sacrificed so much in order for me to survive.
Story 76. No tempo da Covid, fui obrigado a ficar em casa com a minha filha de 7 anos. Passei 7 meses com ela em casa, fazendo as refeições, acompanhando-a nas aulas online. Vê-la crescer nesse curto espaço de tempo foi a melhor coisa que me aconteceu.
Story 77. In a new relationship after being in an abusive one for 7 years. It's crazy how much better a person can treat you when they're fully present mentally. Spending these past couple of months with her has really been eye-opening. Story 78. I'm going on a date, and for the first time, I'm seeing the guy I've been crushing on for a year on social media. Story 79. When I won Student of the Year in my field, after kids had bullied me a lot during my first year of college. I had to drop out, but I came back after a gap year. I was still bullied by other students for being smart and having a disability, but I'm still thriving today. Story 80. The day my niece was born, I held her for the first time and she grabbed my finger, and I just completely lost it. I'm not even a crier, but that moment broke me in the best way. Story 81. When almost all of my extended family and I were at a beach condo for a week. Summer 2012. Going to the beach, chilling with my cousins, riding jet skis with the family. I was about 14 years old, zero worries or thoughts about the future. I wasn't epileptic then. All of my friends were still young and so on. Story 82. When I gave birth to my girls. So, technically, 2 of the happiest moments of my life. My girls are everything to me. They're all grown up now in their 20s and 2 years apart. Story 83. When my child was a newborn, it was very cold and snowy. My husband and I were home with no work or outside stress. We ordered in ramen and other delicious meals and watched the Olympics nonstop. We were our little unit. The kid kicked my ass for 9 months and almost killed me in delivery, but they've been the most amazing kids since. Every day is the best, but when I think back to a time I wish I could go back to because I was so happy, it's that fancy ramen, cozy nights in Dream Child Newborn, amazing husband, snowstorm, nowhere to be, watching the Olympics. Story 84. After leaving my previous job, it was really toxic to the point that it made me depressed. Story 85. I applied to a job I was underqualified for. With some luck, I got it and it completely changed my life. I was able to inspire myself and the people I worked with. Story 86. 2001. Christmas. Due to heavy snow, no school for almost a month. Pokemon Mania, playing with all my friends. All the family was around for the last time. It was just perfect. Story 87. When the emergency room doctor told me I saved my dad's life by bringing him back to the ER after his prostate cancer removal caused a heart attack. They had left fluid in his lungs. He's still alive after a triple bypass. I used to dream of being a touring musician, but being locked into a contract and unable to help my parents when needed would have been a knot in my belly. I'm glad that didn't work out, as I got to be there for him. Story 88. After top surgery, on the day I got to take off the post-surgery binder for the last time and start existing with a flat chest. Story 89. When I won a contest in an industry I was already in, it just validates where I belong. Core memory for sure. Story 90. Right now, having a successful GoFundMe for my music project so I can make music makes me pretty happy. Story 91. I struggle with these questions because listing one would mean putting things that matter so much to me above another. So I never have just one. Even when I thought of an answer, I flitted between so many. Such as my wedding day, the birth of my children, being in a field with all my friends listening to music at multiple festivals, and days with loved ones I remember from my childhood. Story 92. Looking back, it may have been my cancer diagnosis. Ever since then, I have lived my life to the fullest. I think I have experienced more in a shorter life than I ever would have in a long one. Story 93. When I gave birth to my daughter after years of infertility. In fact, my whole pregnancy was a joy. I was never sick the whole time. She was born on Christmas Eve, my favorite day of the year since I was a child. Such a gift. Story 94. When I convinced my crush to let me suck a fart out of her ass and hold it like a bong hit, I got so fucking high. Felt like I smoked a gram of heroin.
I think she died. My sucking game's on point.
Story 95. When my son was born, I never knew what that level of love and happiness could feel like until my wife passed him to me and I held him for the first time. 6 years later, he and I are each other's world. Story 96. I have 4, marrying my wife, twice actually, and the births of our 3 children. Story 97. I can't even remember the last time I was happy. Maybe when I was a kid at some point. Story 98. Nah, I'm not falling for that trap again. I fell for that one over 20 years ago. My happiest moment. My wife saying yes to the surprise proposal. 1 week later, my mom died unexpectedly. Nope, never gonna find myself that happy again. Story 99. The moment before my first suicide attempt, thinking I'd soon be free from all the shit. Oh, how wrong I was.